Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kate, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to paint a winter watercolor pine cone. Let's get started. To start this painting, we are first going to take a pencil and sketch in where we are going to have our tree branch. So it's going to come up from this top right here, and we're just going to have it curve out a little past the halfway point of our page, and then we're going to have another line coming down on the right side, and then I'm going to leave it like that. All right, so this is the branch that we are going to be working with. And we want this in place because as we put in our background, we want to know where our pine cone is going to fall and where our branch is going to be, to keep that to be the lightest area, and the darkness will kind of border around it. So this is going to be our main branch, and we're going to have our pine cone down here. But I'm not going to sketch in my pine cone. We are just going to use watercolor to put that in. And when we get to that part, I'll show you how to do it. It's actually very easy. All right, so now that we have our lines in place, we are going to take our flat brush and we are going to apply paint starting on the left side, working toward the right, and we're going to make this side darker, and it's gonna get lighter as we go over. Sorry, I could not get that out. And then we're just gonna dip, and then we're gonna use clean water to kind of fill in over here. So you can see how it just is gonna blend into a lighter color. So I'm gonna add a little bit of more pigment to my mixture. We don't want it to be too dark. And then I'm going to clean my brush off again. And then I'm going to blend that over. Just like that. And that is our first step. So you want this layer to dry before we move on to our tree branch and pine cones. So now what we're going to do is add our pine needles to our tree branches that we have already drawn in place. So I'm just going to turn my page just so I'm coming at it more directly. And I'm going to take my small detail brush and I'm going to dip it into my green paint. And all you have to do to create these pine needles is just use quick line motions to paint them in. You're going to start with your the pine needles being short at the front, and then they're going to become wider as you work up your tree branch. And we're not going to go all the way up our tree branch. We're just going to go about a third of the way. And I'm going to take a little bit some darker paint on my brush, and I'm going to just add a second layer to kind of bring this out. So I don't want to cover up all of my lighter paint. I just want to add to it by putting this darker paint on top. Quick line motions like this. And I'm going to add just a little bit of Payne's Gray to my green to add a third dark layer. this is just gonna help my pine needles not seem so flat against our page. We want it to come to life and pop out off the page. And just by layering up different tones and colors, you can create that effect. All right, we're gonna leave it like that. I'm gonna turn my page again, and then we're gonna work on this branch. Just gonna add a little bit more right there. And then we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna start light, and then we're gonna work into a darker layer, just adding those quick lines with the tip of our brush. And this pine needle, we are gonna allow it to go all the way off the page. So you can just work all the way up until it comes off the page. And again, you want it to get wider as it reaches the top and the shorter lines at the bottom. So now we're going to go back in with that second darker layer. Add a little bit more green to my mixture. And then I'm just going to go back in certain areas, adding that darker green. I'm just going to a little bit Payne's Gray again to my mixture for that third coat. And I'm just going to drop that in certain areas. And it's okay if your paint is starting to dry. It doesn't have to be wet for all of these colors to blend together. And I'm just going to add a little bit more to this one. Just make it a little bit more full. All right. And then we're going to bring it back to the original spot, and we're going to let this layer dry, and then we're going to come back in with our pine cone. So now we're going to add our pine cone to our painting, and to do this, we are going to take our detail brush, and we're first going to paint in our branch. And we're going to use a really thick mixture of burnt umber. So just turn your page to where you're comfortable with adding in a very thin line. So we're going to start by doing it along our pencil line that we can still see. And just using the tip of the brush, I am bringing it all the way to my pine needles. And then I'm going to let it work its way through. I'm not going to do a straight bold line through because I want it to look like the pine needles are covering it up. I'm going to do the same thing to this one. Just kind of bringing it through, just with the tip of my brush. And then I'm going to do it off to the side here. Make it look like they're connected. To add our pine cone to this painting, we are going to start just by dropping in some burnt umber paint. So I think the best way is just for me to show you, and we are going to paint this upside down, dangling off the tree. So we're going to start with a rounded top right here, and it's going to kind of curve out. It's going to get wider, and then it's going to come back and get smaller. And I'm just going to put in where I want it to end so I don't go too crazy with my shape and the proportion. I don't want it to accidentally come off the page. So these are just guidelines for me. This is going to be technically our bottom, because the bottom hangs off the branch facing downward. So you're just going to start by tapping in paint. All you have to do is just take the top of the brush and tap it down, create two little curved lines, and then all we're going to do is just keep tapping in paint in the shape of a pine cone. You want to leave some white space to give it that natural highlight and shadow, and to really be able to tell the difference between the different little sections of the pine cone. And you want to start with a lighter tone, and then we're going to add some dark later. So I'm just going to do that. Just kind of do whatever's comfortable with you. You can follow exactly the way I'm doing it, or you can work whatever direction works best for you. Going upside down is a little bit different, so you can flip your page around as well to help with your shape and form. So I want it to come out a little bit more here on the sides. Just like that. And then I'm going to take some more burnt umber on my brush to make a thicker mixture, and we're going to tap in some darker tones. I'm trying to find the ones that are still pretty wet. If you tap it into one that's kind of dried, I am going to show you how you can blend it out so it doesn't look so sharp against the light. A lot of my really light ones have dried already, so I can definitely show you how to blend that out so it's not so harsh. Right, like that, and then all you have to do to blend out any harsh lines is clean your brush off, have a little bit of clean water on it, just kind of reactivate that spot with that clean water, and then blend it out. So you don't have to worry about it being too harsh and taking away from the loose watercolor feel that we're going for here. Right, just take a little bit more dark paint. I want to tap it in right at my top. And just kind of have fun placing in color, but you do want to make sure you have white space and make sure you have the lighter still showing through. You don't want the dark paint that you just put in to overtake all the light that we had just put in. Right. And then we are going to splatter in some white paint for some snow around our pine cone. So right now I'm not really going to cover up my pine cone. Some of it is still wet, and that's okay. I'm going to take my round brush and I'm just going to tap in that paint. And you're really going to see this more in like this darker area up here. So wherever there's darkness, the snow is going to come up a little bit more. But I want it to feel like my branches have snow on them. I want it to feel like a snowy night with this pine cone dangling off the tree. And I'm just using white watercolor paint, so it's a lot of the paint and a little bit of the water to make it real loose to come off my brush. And then I'm just splattering it around. So this is gonna dry pretty lightly, and if you see that, just go back in with a second coat, even after it's dried, and it will appear. It will show up. And if you don't have white watercolor paint, you can always use white acrylic paint. And just do the same thing, add water to it, and it will show up. Acrylic paint is very opaque, so it'll stand off the page a little bit more than the watercolor will. You could also use a white ink pen, but that would take a really long time to tap in all of those dots. But there you have a winter watercolor pine cone. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed painting this watercolor pine cone with me today. If you did, please subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up. If you'd like any extra details on this video, head over to my blog, Reflecting Creation, where I'll have more details on the supplies that I use, as well as the paint colors that I used. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.